State employees here in Colorado, including many educators, get a pension when they retire from the PERA Association. That's Public Employees Retirement Association, I think, close enough. But we don't know exactly what they're getting and how much many of them are getting paid, which means our state treasurer has gotten into a lot of hot water asking a simple question, which is, what's exactly going on the PERA Board? Walker Stapleton, thanks for joining us.
John, thank you.
Now, let me see if I understand the situation right. As state treasurer, you also sit as one of the 15 members on the PERA Board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And PERA's job is to do what?
PERA's job is to basically provide the retirement incomes for approximately 500,000 public workers in our state. And by public workers, I mean K through 12 educators, higher education members that may teach in some of our community colleges around the state, local government workers, local government officials, and some of the patrolmen that so ably serve our state.
And it's a very lavish program. That is, your retirement is based on your last couple of years of employment, and you're guaranteed certain benefits when you retire.
Well, what it is, John, is it's a defined benefit program. And what is a defined benefit program? A defined benefit program is a program that guarantees you a certain level of retirement income for the rest of your life. And in Colorado, we have set an expectation that people will be guaranteed effectively an 8% rate of return on the investments that the pension fund makes over a 30-year time period.
8%?
So 8%. So
wait, let me slow down here, because I'm not a financial genius on this, but I've been looking at my 401k plan, and it's not getting anywhere close to 8%, more like negative 8%, but it doesn't seem that 8% as a guaranteed rate of return it has anything to do with reality, does it?
I don't believe that it does. And if you look, you know, markets go up and markets go down. We've witnessed the stock market lose more than 5% in 1 week alone this year. So, you know, to guarantee an 8% rate of return is a very difficult benchmark to achieve, and made even more difficult when you actually look at the allocation of PERA's portfolio and you find out that approximately a quarter of PERA's investments are in fixed income or bond investments. And most people in the investment business understand that bonds yield somewhere between 2 to 3%. And so if a quarter of your portfolio is invested in fixed income and you know it's going to be yielding year in and year out 2 to 3%, it actually means the rest of your portfolio has to average out even higher than 8, more like 10.5 or 11 over a 30-year time period to reach this 8%.
Am I wrong, or is this just fantasy that those type of rates of return can be guaranteed without it going insolvent?
Well, I think that is the worry. The worry is insolvency and what happens. And structurally, what happens if there is insolvency is it's left to the state and ultimately the taxpayers to backfill the obligations that are made by the pension system. If you look structurally at a public pension system or a defined benefit system versus a private pension system, United Airlines, for example, went insolvent twice because of a pension system that was a defined benefit system that was not sustainable. When they
but they had a market test, which is when they went under, they went bankrupt.
That's exactly right.
We didn't pay for their mistake.
Right, exactly right, and that's the distinction. When they went bankrupt, they restructured through Chapter 11. Unless you were had the misfortune of being a stewardess or a pilot or a mechanic with United Airlines or an investor in United Airlines stock, that didn't affect you. That's not the same with a public pension system. It affects all of us and affects the state and it affects our budget woes greatly in the state.
Let me kick that back, make sure I'm understanding that. So unlike a private company that might have a pension, and very few companies even have pensions anymore, they have gone to 401ks or contribution plans, defined contribution plans. But if a private company has a pension and it goes bust, well, then those people who are going to get that money, they're the ones who are hurt. In this case, it's the taxpayers who are obligated to fill that back in. So even though I'm not going to be covered by PERA, I've got a very strong standing in this. I'm concerned about the how liquid PERA is going to be and how solvent it is.
Exactly. What the executives at the pension, we're splitting hairs here, but what the executives at the pension system would tell you is technically it's not true, but that the taxpayers have to bail out the system, and that's true. But, you know, is the state of Colorado in practical application going to allow the Jefferson County School District to go bankrupt? Is it going to allow the city of Colorado Springs to go bankrupt? The answer to that question is no. And then the question becomes, well, how are they going to find the money then to make sure that they don't go insolvent? And the only place, I mean, look, we're running a budget deficit here in Colorado and have been. The only place they can turn to, ultimately, in my opinion, is probably the taxpayers.
All right, I want to talk about transparency. we at the Independence Institute have made requests, and we've always tried to see, well, tell us who's receiving what. What are the packages that are coming out of PERA? What are some of the higher retirement packages? I'd like to see how people are living on PERA now. And like anyone else who's done an open records request, you get something back that says, sorry, it's confidential.
Right.
We don't know. I'm assuming you're on the board. You know this stuff. You're able to know this.
And sadly, I do not know it. And I made an information request that was not a CORA request. That's an important distinction. A CORA request, which stands for Colorado Open Records Access, is made by members of the public. And I am not a member of the public in making this request. I'm a member of the board. So I made the request as a member of the board to see what some of the future liabilities are of the defined benefit system. This is information that is not disclosed to me as a board member, nor is it disclosed publicly. And the reason it isn't is because the Government Accounting Standards Board, which operates and governs disclosures of public pension systems across the United States, has not mandated that pension systems disclose what their future liabilities are. So the governor of the state, he has no clue. Trust me, I have no clue as a board member. Most people in the public, most legislators, decision makers, public policy makers, none of those important people have any clue whatsoever about the future liabilities of this system.
Let's see if I get this, because this is a little bit of a mind warp here. You're the treasurer of the state of Colorado.
Yes.
You're responsible for our financial stability, our investments, making sure that our bonds are being paid off and all the other good stuff. But as part of your role, you sit on the board, by law, you sit on the board of PERA, which takes care of people who are members of this and who are going to get money from retirement. And therefore, you have no ability to look in and ask these detailed questions of what benefits are going to happen?
It doesn't seem like I have that ability, because I framed an information request and they denied the request. And unfortunately, we now have to take them to court and have the courts decide on this, which is, in my opinion, a egregious waste of resources, both from PERA's standpoint and from our standpoint as well. But that's the position they've taken, and we were stonewalled on our information request for more than 3.5 months. So this is really a path of last resort for us. But I think it's important from a corporate governance standpoint that this information be transparently shared with all board members, no matter what their opinion of the system may be.
Why is it so important that you know this stuff? I mean, I'd like to know it, but why is it important to you?
Because it's important to me, because I need to get an understanding of the promises that have been made to the benefit members. And I need to get an understanding about whether the plan can be solvent going forward in the future, because I've got some feeling and that there's some deep problems in the system. One of the problems in the system happened in the early 2000s, when we allowed people to purchase retirement years at approximately 1/5 of the cost of the benefits that they were getting. And so if you were financially savvy and had the opportunity to take out a second mortgage or get money from a charitable aunt, you would have bought retirement years, and you could have officially checked out of the system. It used to be that you could retire at 55. Now it's 58 for school teachers and 60 for everybody else. So if you were actually financially savvy, you could be checking out of the system in your early 50s, and the state of Colorado and the public pension system could be on the hook for paying you your retirement for the next 25 or 30 years.
Incredible, but you have to do this because you not only represent the taxpayers, but you represent those people who are covered by PERA, and some of these people might be really hurt when they find out the money isn't going to be there.
That's exactly right, especially younger generations of public workers. And I've gotten a lot of letters in. I got a letter in a couple months ago from a math teacher in Durango who was 28 years old, who said, look, who wouldn't like an 8% rate of return to be guaranteed to them? The problem is, if it's not achievable, and I don't believe it is, what retirement future will there be for me after 30 years of teaching school, and my wife, who also teaches school? So this is important for plan members to recognize, that the promises that are being made to them may not be fulfilled. It's also important for them to recognize that if they're not fulfilled, the legislature in one fell swoop can take them away. So it's important to be transparent about what could be a very big math problem. And that's what I want to do. I want to see if there's a math problem, because what I've said before, John, is that a math problem is not a Democrat problem or a Republican problem. A math problem is a math problem, and a math problem needs to be solved.
Yeah, don't worry. Have you seen the student testing scores? America is like at the worst level for math. We're like 39th in the world, so it's not a big problem. Tell me, in general, how much money does PERA have, and how much is it obligated? Because right now there is a shortfall between what is obligated and how much they could pay out.
Well, I think that's important from a transparency standpoint and from the financial information that I requested of PERA, because the management of PERA is not in any position to be given the benefit of the doubt. They aren't, because they are approximately $21 billion in the hole. And if you take that, $21 billion.
So we're talking that if we took all the money from our general fund and all the money that we got from Washington for Medicaid and other programs, it would still take us well over a year. We could work all the revenue that comes into Colorado from the feds and from Coloradans for a year could go to fill that hole, and it still wouldn't fill it.
Absolutely right. And if we had to pay our bills that were due to retirees today, we would be $21 billion short. It's important to note, however, that that number is based on the 8% rate of return. If the rate of return is 6% and it's not 8%, well, then you've taken a $21 billion liability and you've grown it by 50%. So we got two things here. Yeah.
Even under this magical idea that we're going to get an 8% return from now until forever, which is just insane, that's $21 billion shortfall.
Right.
But if you start bringing that closer to reality, closer to what does the private sector do? You used to be in the private sector. If you're going to have a pension, it's going to be guaranteed. What kind of rates are you likely to be guaranteed?
Well, you know, I think a good barometer, John, is if you went out and tried to get a life insurance guarantee. The insurance industry is in the business of guaranteeing people for upfront payments some sort of rate of return. And you would never in your right mind see an 8% rate of return. You might see a 4%, 4.5%, 5%. And when you're talking about a fund such as PERA, which is approximately $40 billion, the difference between 5% or 6% or even 7% and 8% is billions of dollars for the state of Colorado.
Tell me a little bit about the board. There's 15 of you, and you're there to look out after this fund, make sure that you have a fiduciary responsibility to the people who are going to be paid through this fund when they retire. Who are the other 14?
The other 14, there's 3 gubernatorial appointees who come with a prerequisite of having a financial and accounting background. And then there's 12 plan members, including myself. So 11 members that come from different constituencies represented by PERA. So higher education teachers, K through 12 teachers, local government officials. There's no term limits on the board, so they run amongst fellow members and get elected to the board.
So basically, out of the 15, how many of them are not beneficiaries?
Only the 3 gubernatorial appointees. That's it. 12 out of the 15 are beneficiaries.
So lavish benefits are in their interest.
Right. You're talking about 80% who have a direct economic interest in the decisions being made or not being made regarding the pension.
Incredible. All right, real quickly. Do you think you're going to win this suit so you can get a look at...
Absolutely. And I think it's important that we win this suit because I think that it establishes a precedent for corporate governance all across the state and hopefully the country as well.
And that's the way it's done in most other states.
Yeah.
Walker, thank you.
John,
thank you. Listen for me late nights on 850 KOA. Check out the Independence Institute website, independenceinstitute.org. Tell a friend. We'll see you next week.